Point and Shelby. Once again, back in Belmont. Joe Cagle says bowling alley, 4:30 in Belmont. Food before the game. See you there.
Yeah.
I know Richard will be covering it. You never pass up a free meal, so you'll probably see Richard at the bowling alley there, Joe. But I was there 2 weeks ago. It was an early blocked punt. It just set the tone for the game. Sometimes a team gets a big play early and they sit back, and it's maybe the worst thing that could happen.
And it's interesting you say
that.
At
South Point, they went right
because as I look at
it,
momentum. The history that I've looked at is not shine favorably for South Point. Now, granted, this is a different South Point team, but in 1972, 1974, 1987, and 1993, Shelby and South Point played a second time in the playoffs. Shelby is 4-0 in those games. Now, you say, what does 1993 have anything to do with what's going on in 2017? I mean, maybe nothing, but it's interesting history. And it really, what the history shows is just how successful Shelby's been in the playoffs. I mean, Shelby, comes into this game with a playoff winning streak of 21 straight games. I mean, who does that? It's crazy. But, South Point, I felt this way really since first watching them. Particularly, it's interesting when you see a team win. Yeah, it's easy to win when things are going your way. I've seen it when South Point has found ways to really stifle the other team, dominate the other team, break the other team, and I feel like this is one of those teams. I mean, obviously, it's hard to write the history of this or get a true significance of it until the season's over, but, we've spent a good many years talking about great South Point football teams, and if this team can run the table, they can go shoulder to shoulder with the rest of them. And that's hard to say given how strong they've been in football, but I think this is one of those teams. I would be surprised if they don't make that 4-0 a 4-1 after this week, but you can't underestimate Shelby. I mean, they're, what is it? Old NBA coach Rudy Tomjanovich said you can never underestimate the heart of a champion. Shelby's won it, 4 years in a row. They're not going away easily. And you mentioned earlier, I mean, there was another special teams play in that game that I think could come into play a little bit. Xavier Brooks, to me, is Shelby's X factor. He returned a kickoff back. It'll be curious to me how South Point handles making kickoffs. Shelby's going to make some kind of adjustments with their punt block game to try to prevent. Matthew Robinson, I believe, blocked a punt and scored. And special teams plays could kind of turn this game because I think all the statistical metrics favor South Point and should. I mean, I looked it up the other day. They've not trailed the whole year ever. They've been 0-0, obviously, but Ashbrook was the only team that got close to them, and it was 7-6 in the first quarter, and I think they won the game like 35-20 or something. So South Point has managed this target on their back. I mean, they were a state runner-up in heartbreaking fashion 2 years ago. Came back last year and showed their mettle and won it, even though they didn't win their conference, and showed true heart of a champion. This year, many of those same players, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine them not winning this game, but if a team's going to do it, it's going to be Shelby. In fact, I talked to one of the statewide prep writers, Justin Jones, I believe it's NC Preps or whatever he worked for, at the UNC Charlotte game last week against Middle Tennessee. We were talking about how we feel like this may well be the 2 AA state championship in the second round.
I think that's the perception, and rightfully so. You said the word they've broken their opponent, South Point. And I think that's a good way of putting it. That early punt sort of broke Shelby, and we were all so hyped up for this game, both on the fans and the players and the coaches' side, that it was almost a little bit disappointing. And that's not to take anything away from South Point, but it was just so much coming into this game that we're expecting a back and forth, blows either way, maybe trading scores and a close game at the end. And they broke them early with that punt block. And then it was 35-15, but the 15 points came on a big screen play and, as you mentioned, a kickoff return
and a field goal.
So two big touchdowns, 2 big plays, and not taking away from Shelby. But it wasn't like they had sustained offense throughout the game, that they were sort of able to put drives together. And Brooks, while he had that huge kickoff return, wasn't really able to get anything going in the run game. Malik Surratt had a lot of carries, but a lot of them came because he was back in the pocket sitting there 3-4 seconds, and then he had to break and run. So a nice job by the South Point secondary and a nice job by the defensive line keeping him bottled up. As he was just, you think of Shelby in the last few years in these 4 state titles, and they're spread out. There's guys like Jaden Borders with those posts over the middle, getting free. Maybe those quick little screen passes, and you get a one-on-one, and the Shelby guy makes someone miss, and they just weren't able to make anybody miss. South Point's defense controlled the game, but it would be interesting to see if South Point's not up early. As you said, they've never trailed. If they don't get that big punt block, if maybe Shelby lands the first blow, how does South Point respond? And I'm sure, they've been through situations like that for these guys in the last 3 years in Rocky Mountain, 2 state championships. But this year, we've never seen somebody get the upper hand on them and them have to come back.
Well,
so
and should South Point keep this going, I was looking this up, they're really in rare air in our area. Crest went 16-0 in 2015 and 2016, 32 in a row is the record for Gaston, Lincoln, and Cleveland County. East Lincoln won 30 in a row.
32 in a row?
Yeah, the first game of last year. 30 games in a row by East Lincoln, 2014 and 15. Cleveland High, which included Bobby Bell, Hall of Fame, Kansas City Chiefs linebacker, in 56-58, the old black high school in Shelby, 23 in a row. Shelby won 23 in a row, 2005 to 2007. South Point, 22 in a row. A Gaston County record and a chance to kind of move into third place if they can finish up with the state title behind Crest and East Lincoln in our immediate area. So again, they're in rare air to be able to pull this off, and it's just amazing. 6 shutouts. I mean, in these days of spread offenses and everybody scoring points and racking up numbers, it's staggering that a team has got 6 shutouts in 12 games.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody in the state is doing that.
Yeah,
and remember last year they were close. They gave up a touchdown to Rocky Mountain, but they were close to being, and they ended up being, I think, maybe 10th or 11th in what I could glean. Because, again, if you're going to do a history lesson, the modern history of our state association playoffs really dates to 77, because many of us, I was a kid when this happened, the old Western North Carolina High School Activities Association included most of our schools in this area. So everybody in the state was on board with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association from 77 on. And South Point's defensive excellence last year was on par with anybody that had ever been. And again, before 76, there was all different kind of ways of doing the state playoffs. But 77 to 84, they played a 4-round playoff. And since 85, it's been a 5-round playoff. And obviously, I think 01 or 02, I think 01 they might have did the 1A to start with, the double A separating into 5 classifications. Now you've got 8 classifications.
Right.
But largely since 85, we've been, all of us, you had to win 5 games to win a state championship.
Right. So that'll be the game you're at on Friday night. Looking forward to that one again, second time in 3 weeks. And as most see it, I think the way we see it, but not just locally around the state, as a potential 2AA championship game. High Brighton to deal with in a couple weeks maybe, but an undefeated team. But as we saw last year with South Point, they'd be a heavy favorite going into that one. I think Shelby would too, even on the road.